With the market demanding versatile and capable subcompact crossovers under $30,000, Nissan had to take a good long look in the mirror and realize that their lifted hatchback just wasn't going to cut it in the modern age. Here we are for 2025 with the new Nissan Kicks. It's a completely new generation, and as you can tell, it's far and away bigger than what we had last year at this time. And from the outside, you can see that it looks a bit more rugged. It also looks somewhat capable here. And in today's video, we're going to check out what this Nissan Kicks SV has to offer under $30,000. We're going to take a good long look at the exterior, the interior, take it out for a quick test drive, and see why, if you are in the market for a subcompact crossover that gives you the versatility, capability, and possibly efficiency, then maybe taking a look at the 2025 Nissan Kicks might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Nissan of Merrimack Valley here in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, for letting me come down here to check out the Nissan Kicks. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Nissan inventory. So as always, let's begin with pricing. For 2025 with the Nissan Kicks SV, you're looking at a starting cost of just over $23,500 if you go with front-wheel drive. All-wheel drive will tack on about $1,500 to that price tag, and you'll be spending close to $25,300, which really isn't too bad for a mid-tier trim such as the SV. Now, there is a lot to talk about for this model and this new generation. Just take a look at its design. It's very traditional to the crossover market. It lost its hatchback look for something a bit more substantial. But there are a few metrics I want to dive into for this model that I think is going to make a huge difference for a lot of you who are in this market. So for one, you now have all-wheel drive as an option. You didn't have that for last generation. That, to me, makes this crossover more valuable if you do live in colder regions of the US. However, as you can see with its crossover design and boxier shape, you also get better ground clearance at 8.4 inches, which isn't too far off of the Subaru Crosstrek. Now, that is about 1.5 inches better than last generation. So that will match the cladding that we have here for the wheel wells and then the rear bumper as well. So this vehicle can now take on some of those elements. Now, in regards to its dimensions, it's about 3 inches longer and 2 inches wider and about 1 inch higher with that higher roof line. So you're going to notice that this vehicle is a bit more conducive and family friendly right off the bat. But now let's get into its design. And I don't think anyone's really talked about this for the Nissan Kicks, but I'm going to bring this up because it kind of reminds me of an older model in the Nissan lineup, and that is the Nissan Juke. I see some Juke elements here for the Kicks. The way the body lines are, the rear fascia, and then even the front fascia, there's a sportier element to this model that I think brings a lot to the table in regard to that appearance. So up front, you are going to receive LED headlights and LED daytime running lights for that modern appearance. Now, no fog lights for the SV. That isn't too much of a surprise for this vehicle. Now, I do notice some of the gloss black trim for the front grille, tying everything together for this model, giving you a two-tone look, which you can go with a two-tone look for the top portion of this model if you so desire. Then for the lower portion of the front bumper will be that cladding, so you can take on those elements. And as you make your way over to the side profile, with the SV, you are going to have 17-inch alloy wheels and a two-tone design here, which looks pretty good for a vehicle in this market. Now, with the 17s, this will go very well for this subcompact crossover. Ride quality should be pretty good here for a lot of you, especially if you are in the market at around $26,000. Obviously, if you were to go with the have a larger tire size, that might play around with that ride quality and road noise. Better yet, with the SV, you will have body color folding side mirrors, but no turn signal indicators. However, you are going to receive blind spot detection for added safety, and that is not part of an optional package. That is fantastic to see because some subcompact crossovers do force you to spend a little extra for that safety. Then as you make your way around to the back, this is where I see the Nissan Juke. I see so many body lines and inspiration from that model. You have the sloping roof line that makes its way into the rear hatch, but then also even for the C-pillars, they're decently sized, and there will be a Kicks emblem here, which is a nice little touch. I'd like to see that for these vehicles in this segment. And for the rear fascia itself, you will have those taillights here that kind of integrate into the hatch and into the liftgate. Like to see that here, and there's also some gloss black trim that you're going to see outline those taillights and into that center portion of the rear fascia. You're going to have some cladding, obviously, matching what you have up front and for the side profile. and better yet, there is a body color rear diffuser. I mean, how often do you see that in this market? Love to see it. Then beneath that, you are going to find your exhaust outlet. So it is visible from certain angles. I know a lot of manufacturers are tucking them beneath the bumper for that cleaner appearance, but at least we have that there, giving us that traditional gas-powered model look. Taking a quick peek under the hood for the 2025 Nissan Kicks, you are going to receive a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, producing 141 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with a CVT. Now, these numbers are marginally better than where we were last year at this time for the last generation Kicks, but these aren't earth-shattering numbers. These are not going to be breaking any speed records anytime soon. However, with the Kicks for this new model, it's all about being efficient and economical while also still being affordable. So let's talk about that fuel economy. So with the 2025 Nissan Kicks, if you go with all-wheel drive, you are going to receive 27 miles per gallon in the city and 34 miles per gallon on the highway for a combined average of 30 miles per gallon, which falls right in line with a lot of vehicles in this market. So if you are in need of a larger subcompact crossover compared to last generation with that Nissan Kicks, 2025 will be providing a larger vehicle with the all-wheel drive system, but also good fuel economy as well. As impressive as the exterior is for the 2025 Nissan Kicks, it's the first impressions for the interior that is nothing but positive. And even for an SV, I think a lot of you are going to be genuinely impressed here, because for a vehicle that comes in at around $25,000, $26,000, obviously you're not going to expect to receive a luxurious experience or even an experience that would be similar to a Nissan Rogue or Nissan Murano. However, when you take a look at the technology, the dashboard layout, even the materials that Nissan did use here, this is great to see. And for a model that I think didn't meet expectations for the last generation, could have been better, because when you take a look at the fact you didn't have that all-wheel drive system, there was a lack of ground clearance, a lack of size, Nissan has remedied all those issues, and the interior is a big one for sure. So starting with the seats, they are cloth upholstery for both the driver and passenger, and they're also manually adjustable. There is one optional package, we will get into this in a few minutes, that I think provides a lot of value for this vehicle and for this particular trim, because you can go with heated front seats, which I think would be perfect on a very cold day like today. Now, with these seats, they are actually very supportive, which is a bit of a surprise. I can feel the bolstering, I can feel that grip there, and if you're someone who is constantly on those weekday commutes, I think you're going to find yourself pretty comfortable here. Now, obviously, these seats are not going to be the most supportive in this market, but that's to be expected since the Kicks isn't going to be a sports crossover. But I think comfort-wise, this is most certainly on par with its closest rivals. Now, really, though, for me, it's all about the dashboard layout here, and I want to get into the materials for the Kicks SV, because there is this cloth upholstery or cloth material on the dashboard, which we're seeing a lot more of now in the automotive industry. We saw it with Toyota, we're now seeing it with Nissan. And some people are saying, I don't really like that. It doesn't look that great. It doesn't feel that great. This is better than hard touch plastic. I can say that for sure. Now, on the dashboard, you are going to have some soft to touch materials here. It's not very hard plastic, so there's at least some comfort here. The door panels are a bit of a different story, but that's to be expected for a crossover coming in at $26,000. In front of you will be a digital gauge cluster. And then, of course, you have that infotainment system, which you first experienced with the Murano. Now, with the SV, you're not going to have this full digital gauge cluster that we're going to see on higher trims and in higher models. But I have to say, though, what we have here to work with compared to some vehicles in this segment, this is pretty impressive. So on the left side of the steering wheel, you can scroll through some information here and also customize this layout to your liking. So it's from here you can scroll through a variety of different sub-menus, such as your fuel economy statistics, also your tire pressure monitoring system, great to see here, your radio presets, then of course your blind spot detection, forward collision warning, lane departure warning, great to see here for a vehicle at around 26 grand. And then you have your vehicle settings here, where you can go through your driver assistance features, eco mode settings, tire pressure monitoring settings, clock, vehicle settings. You can go through all this at your own discretion and on your own time. Now, I have to say here, for a vehicle that is going to be on the lower end in the lineup, the resolution is really great to see here. I mean, I've seen some manufacturers try doing this in the past, and it still looks kind of cheap and tacky. But Nissan's doing a pretty good job here in the tech department. Now, obviously, with the steering wheel, it's not going to be leather wrapped, so it's not going to give you that enthusiast sensation. No aggressive 10-2 or firm 9-3 grips, but that's to be expected for a crossover at this price point. Then taking a look at the infotainment system, this is a 12-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. Great to see. Now, Nissan has always fallen behind in regards to technology. I don't think you can say that anymore with this infotainment system. So on the left side of the screen will be quick access icons that will get you to different menus efficiently, such as your home screen, but then also your radio, your Bluetooth, and then also your information settings, such as your system information and notifications. You can also have a notification tab at the top of the screen as well, so you can easily access that whenever your vehicle notifies you. But I have to say, the resolution, the responsiveness, this is really great to see here, and it does go a long way for a subcompact crossover in this market. So I think a lot of you are going to enjoy what you have here in regards to the technology for your fingertips and at your disposal. Then when you place the Kicks in reverse, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory. Great to see here. And it's active trajectory, so that will give you better visibility and confidence when you are backing out of tight streets or in a garage. Then as you make your way down towards the center console, you are going to find a volume knob here and then your seek and track. So you are going to have some physical buttons and some dials here, especially for your climate control. So no dual zone climate control for the SV, but you can control your AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed, and fan direction from these dials, giving you a tactile experience. Beneath that, you are going to find two USB-C inputs, and better yet, there is a wireless phone charging pad here for this model, another great feature to have. Next to that will be your start-stop button, your electronic parking brake, auto vehicle hold, and then next to your gear shifter, you are going to have a drive mode selector. This is great to see. So you have Sport, Standard, Eco, and Snow, and we'll find out what Sport mode is going to be offering here for this model in a few minutes. As we continue on, there is two cup holders here, which they're very deep, so you can easily store some larger drinks when you are on those road trips or weekday commutes. For the center console, it is somewhat small, but you could probably fit a wallet, maybe a smartphone or two. So not too bad, but it is a bit small for a vehicle in this segment. Now let's get into that optional package, which I think brings a lot more value to the table. So for $1,500 to the SV Premium package, you are going to receive silver roof rails, which you probably noticed we don't have on this model. So that was a dead giveaway immediately for what we have here for our SV. A panoramic moonroof, heated front seats, and a remote engine start system, which is huge if you do live in colder regions of the U.S. So I would say for $1,500, definitely go with that package. And then also with that panel moonroof, brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now moving on for passengers in the second row, thanks to the size of the Kicks for 2025, there's a lot more legroom and interior space overall for this subcompact crossover, which should make it a bit more family friendly than the outgoing generation. So back here, passengers are going to receive right around 34.5 inches of legroom, which isn't going to be class leading and also isn't going to be too far off most of its main competitors. More importantly though, is going to be headroom, because there's a lot more of it for this generation since Nissan added a bit more of a boxier look to this model. So I do think that average size adults should be able to sit back here pretty comfortably and not hit their heads on the headliner. Now maybe taller passengers might, but this is still going to be a bit more conducive than that prior generation. Now in regards to that legroom though, this seat is adjusted most of the way back. It's also somewhat on a recline, and I have about a few inches of legroom remaining. Now if I was to move the seat all the way back though, that's where I'd be feeling really cramped and claustrophobic. So if you're looking for a more family-friendly option, I would say definitely go with the Rogue. But if you are on that stricter budget under $30,000, what Nissan is giving you here for this new generation is probably a lot more conducive and sufficient if you do have that younger and growing family. Now, you do not have an aggressive center hump per se, but because of the size of this model, I don't think you'll be squeezing in a third person in the center. You'll most certainly be fighting for that elbow room. Now, for the rest of the second row, no surprises here. You're not going to receive two center-mounted air vents, no USB-A or USB-C input, and no 12-volt outlet. We don't have a center armrest with two cup holders, but there are cup holders on the door panels. Making our way around to the back one more time to take a look at the rear cargo area. Obviously, with the Nissan Kicks, you are not going to receive a power liftgate. But inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 30 cubic feet of room. And I'm close to being very confident in saying that that is class leading for this market, because 30 cubic feet of room is compact crossover territory. Now, the Kicks for last generation was exceptionally practical for a vehicle of its size at right around 25 cubic feet of room. So Nissan is just building off of what they had for last generation, but giving you just a bit more. On both sides of the rear cargo area will be some cubbies for some smaller items, maybe a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. Now, with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 60 cubic feet of room, which would outclass a lot of crossovers in this market and is far and away better than what you had last generation. So what Nissan is trying to do here with the Kicks is make it practical, make it family friendly, make it suitable for a lot of buyers in this market under $30,000. And at least what you have here on paper, they've most certainly done that for sure. Now, we don't have it equipped on our model today, but there are indentations for a rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. And then lastly, beneath the floor mat, and this is optional, you can go with a spare tire. I would definitely recommend it. It's not too expensive for that option, so that way if you do encounter a flat on those road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. For a subcompact crossover in the $30,000 price bracket, you would look at the transformation for the exterior, the all-wheel drive system, and the 8.4 inches of ground clearance as being more than enough for a vehicle in this market, especially when you're cross-shopping it with its predecessor. But it does go one step further with this 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. Now, 140 horsepower and 141 pound-feet of torque isn't going to impress anyone. However, if you do live in the city and suburbs, you're going to notice that this vehicle packs quite the punch. Now, this is not going to be a sports crossover. This is not going to be a vehicle that resembles a Nissan Z or GTR. So what you're getting here is just a practical, efficient, and economical daily driver. But there's a lot more to this vehicle than last generation, where there is some sense of refinement. There is some sense of quality. But there's also this resemblance to being somewhat of a smaller Nissan Rogue, and that is huge for this model because the last generation was basically a lifted hatchback, and it felt like it and it drove like it, whereas this really does fall right in line with a lot of vehicles in this market, like the Honda HR-V, like the Toyota Corolla Cross. I do think it feels a bit bigger than the Subaru Crosstrek. It has more of a traditional crossover feel now, and you feel that with the seat positioning as well, where you have a nice commanding feel and presence over the roadways. You feel as though you're sitting higher up, like you're in a traditional crossover, and that also makes its way to the overall vision. We have a nice panoramic view. The 8 pillars are somewhat thin. Also, side mirrors are decently sized, so I can see what's in my blind spots. And then looking out back, I can see what's directly behind me. Now, in regards to the ride quality, though, I feel as though that, yes, obviously, it's a subcompact crossover, so it's not going to feel like the Nissan Murano, but it does have a nice composure on the roadways. The 17-inch wheels match up perfectly for a vehicle under $30,000. And when you do go over the bumps and imperfections, yeah, you feel them. Obviously, it's not going to be the most softly tuned, but it is going to give you some on-road comfort that you might not have found last generation. Now, as we get on the highway here, I have placed the Kicks in sport mode to see what this vehicle is all about and what the 2-liter is going to provide us. And I will say, on the low end, it packs quite the punch. It really does. There's a lot of low-end torque, and the CVT doesn't drone too much here. Let's get on the highway. And we've already safely emerged. That's phenomenal. That is great to see. Now, at highway speeds at around 70 miles an hour, obviously, there is some road noise here. Interior insulation isn't going to rival what you find in that Nissan Murano, possibly in that Nissan Rogue. But this is more than adequate for a vehicle in its market. Now, as I talked about with the exterior for this model, there seems to be a bit more substance to the Kicks now. And it not only speaks volumes for that design, But you also feel that for the interior. I mean, the fact you have so much shoulder room now, the digital gauge cluster, infotainment system, I mean, you feel like you're in a much more expensive crossover, and that's saying quite a bit here. Now, even in sport mode, though, for this model, I have noticed that the steering is rather light and nimble, but that does give you a sportier feel to this model. There is some sense of maneuverability, which I think would pair up very well if you do live in the city or suburbs. So you can most certainly park this crossover in tight situations, but also when you're on those tight streets, you can maneuver this vehicle around. But so far, I have been very impressed here with this crossover and what Nissan has done. This is huge for Nissan on the lower end in the lineup, and also for its price point. Because for a crossover under $30,000, you know, Nissan needs a competitive vehicle too, because when you look at what the Subaru Crosstrek's doing in regards to sales, I mean, it outsold the Nissan Kicks by about 100,000 units in the US, so this is most certainly needed. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is that when you are accelerating off the line, there's a decent amount of power that kicks in. So you can pass slower drivers, you can get on the highway safely, and also you can merge into different lanes in a safe manner as well. Now, one thing I have noticed today on this quick test drive is that there's not a lot of body roll, which is genuinely surprising me. Now, don't take that out of context. This isn't a sports crossover. You don't have a sports unit suspension. But because you have the 8.4 inches of ground clearance and the higher roofline, I was expecting a lack of lower center of gravity, and that really isn't the case here for this model. When you are on the on-ramps or you are in those twists and bends, you can have some confidence here. You know, this vehicle isn't one-dimensional where it's just going to be economical and a boring subcompact crossover. There is some sense of agility and a sense of fun that we didn't have last generation. When you are cross-shopping this with the Toyota Corolla Cross, Honda HR-V, even Subaru Crosstrek, I think the Nissan Kicks can now hold its own. It's a more well-rounded vehicle that we didn't have in the past. And because of that, I think for a subcompact crossover under $30,000, this should be on your list of considerations now. Even though, yes, it is missing some horsepower here. This is not going to be the quickest vehicle in its market. It's going to provide everything else. It's going to provide the practicality, the ground clearance, the all-wheel drive system, and I think a driving experience that is most certainly competitive and on par with other vehicles in this market. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Nissan Kicks SV. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.